Welcome back, everybody, to the A Little Less Fear podcast. Today, I would like to introduce Theresa Watson. She's an evidential psychic medium for 9 years. She's a healer, a wife, a mother, and a grandmother to an angel baby in spirit. Theresa Watson, welcome to A Little Less Fear podcast.
Thank you. Thank you, Lena. Great to be here.
So awesome. You know what? I love psychic mediums. I'm actually in a mediumship circle myself. This summer will be 1 year since I've been developing these skills that I guess I can see now have been naturally within me since I was a kid, but I really didn't understand how natural these abilities could be, not just for me, but for a lot of people until I started developing these skills in this circle. And the thing that I love about it is that I get closer to my intuition with it. But before we get into anything about mediumship or psychic energy or intuition or how you work with your clients, I'd like to know your journey. What brought you to where you are today as a psychic medium?
Ooh, great question. I love that. My journey was a long one. It definitely started as a child. I was that different one, being raised in San Diego with two older sisters and a younger brother with a single mom. It was already tough being a kid, let alone being a kid with these gifts and abilities that everybody in the family didn't seem to have. So kind of felt like I was always different and very challenging.
How did you know as a kid that you had these abilities?
I would see someone standing in the hallway or at my doorway staring at me and scream bloody murder. My mom would run right through them. And as a kid, you're trying to like verbalize what you just saw, but you really don't have the knowledge to be able to explain to your parent that you just ran through somebody that I saw and you didn't. And so kind of what it showed me was I couldn't speak of it. I had to step back out of my own gifts because it wasn't really allowed. If you put it that, if you think about it that way,
How did you know it wasn't allowed?
from their responses, like looking at you like you're crazy. Oh my God, you're such a crazy. My sisters always call me crazy little girl, crazy little girl. And so to me, that meant I wasn't allowed to be this way. I have to be different. So I had to quote unquote normalize myself to be like them.
And so this happened throughout your life? Or
Oh,
was there
yeah.
ever a time where you stopped seeing these spirits or ghosts or however you want to define it?
I would say it happened throughout my childhood. It stayed. And as I got into my 20s, I think I kind of blocked it, so to speak, so I can start having kids and my own family and this, that, and the other. But they came in different ways. They definitely came in like voices. I can hear my name being said sometimes. I got these fears, like if I was standing in the hall one time and just ready to paint in the hallway, and my kids were next door playing with their friends at the house, and I remember being up on that ladder, and it's just like this shiver running through me, like, get the hell out of this house. It was just like, whoo. And so it never went away. It was always there. My knowing was always there too. My intuition was extremely strong raising my children.
When you say your intuition was strong raising your children, meaning that while you were raising your children, you became more aware of your intuition or something else happened at that time?
I would say absolutely it brought it to a heightened level. There was just so many circumstances that I remember living in San Diego, don't see snow very often, but the local mountains
Right.
would get. I remember taking the kids out of school one day and I said, we're going to go see snow. And they were like, yay. And, you go on those days that everyone else is in school. So it's not so busy there, but then you get there and it's just like, oh God, there's so many people. And it was already like a good hour drive when we were driving, and the kids were so excited. They got their little snow clothes on and they're just like, oh, we get to see snow. And I remember pulling up and taking the exit and immediately having this feeling of knowing that something was not right, and getting right back on the freeway of the other side of the little bridge. And my kids are like, why are we going home? And I said, Mommy just doesn't feel right about it. I just feel sick to my stomach, like something bad is going to happen. You guys have to trust me. And I took them to Chuck E. Cheese and they were fine. So come to find out later, several cars went off the road with the black ice.
Wow.
Yeah. And so that intuition was just so strong. And I didn't know it was so cold that the temperatures were doing that. This is way before we had phones and all this. This was, 20, 25, 24, 25 years ago. It was a long time ago. And so I didn't have that ability to just like, oh, let's check the weather and let's see what it's going to do. I just had to go by my gut. And so those things were increasing as I got older and as my kids were getting older. So that's what I mean by it was there. It was just kind of magnifying.
So how is okay, so then you are relating intuition with the visions that you had of like ghosts and spirits as a kid. I guess it's all kind of like the same energy. Is that
I
what
think
I'm
so.
feeling here?
Intuition is like your own soul telling you what's going on. It's like listening to your own soul.
Hmm.
And we all have that ability. We're all born with instincts, this is what keeps us safe. Don't do that. Don't go here. Don't go there. I think mine just kind of are a little bit heightened, a little bit more magnified.
Hmm.
And I pay attention to them. I was 12 years old and I told my mom not to leave the house. And I was very adamant about it. And she left the house and she was mugged.
So knowing that you have these heightened intuitions, at what point did you actually start to put yourself on the journey of a psychic medium? At what time in your life did you actually start to explore that?
I'd say just before my dad died about 10 years ago. Um, there was a lot of my daughter's friends were coming over, and there was a lot of stuff going on in the house all the time, a lot of activity, so to speak. My youngest daughter, who's almost 25, is very gifted as well. She just chooses not to use her abilities. Very intuitive, definitely a medium in her own sense, just hasn't practiced. And but at that age, I hadn't either, so I don't blame her one bit.
Okay.
But my home was just so full with energy that it was very disturbing, and so I really just felt like I needed to get a handle on it. So I started to reach out to different books and articles, and then finally to a psychic medium in the area here in Oregon. And she just happened to be starting a development class the next week.
Coincidentally, huh?
Uh-huh. She was just like, "Oh, good timing."
Yeah. And so you jumped right into that.
I jumped right in and I got to be part of that circle, part of that group for several years. And that's where I developed. And she was just like, "You're a medium. There's you I can't believe you haven't, kind of figured it out up to this point," kind of thing.
Yeah.
But growing up in my day, we didn't have mediums on TV. I didn't have a book to read. If there was, I didn't know about it. Nobody in my family knew about it. I do now know, looking back at my family heritage, um, both my biological grandmas most definitely had the gift. They became alcoholics,
Hmm.
probably from hearing voices and seeing things and this, that, and the other. But some of the stories my mom and my dad both told me about their parents, it was very, yeah, I was very aware that that's what was going on with them.
Like what kinds of stories?
My grandma would be on the floor when my mom would get home from school talking to the heater. She heard voices coming from it.
She didn't know where they were coming or where these messages were saying, and she was kind of just looking for it.
Talking to the heaters, and she just started drinking, drinking, drinking. And I think a lot of the times that they drank because they wanted to be numb from what they were feeling. My other grandma was very sensitive. She would walk near a cemetery and she would just run. And so I definitely knew that there was some energy that they were feeling and experiencing, and it made me sad. It really made me sad that they went through that.
Yeah, it seems like it, when I think about like psychic mediumships, it's so interesting how thousands of years ago, our ancestors, this was readily available to them. It was like the normal thing. People would go talk to them, even like, should they marry my son,
Yep.
and it was like they were called seers, and
Yep.
they were seen with so much love and gratitude and appreciation. And somewhere through the evolution of the human mind and the egotistical mind, there just seems to have been a blockage and seeing it as taboo for years.
Yeah, the word that comes to mind is fear.
Fear. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Mhm.
it's fear and power. It's
Mhm.
others power over you. So if somebody else has some power of some sorts, it's just, nope, not going to happen. We want to have the power over you. We want you to be fearful. And so that's where I see it changing.
That makes sense. Or a
Mhm.
lot of people say that it was like witchery and stuff like that, where that's something completely different, correct?
Throughout the whole Bible, everybody talks about seeing spirits and talking to
Right.
angels, guides
Yeah,
along the
right.
kind of always blows my mind away that now we're seen as something negative. It's like, are you kidding me? This is what's in an inner knowing inside of us. And if we all just utilized it more, we would be safer and be able to navigate this world a little easier.
It's so interesting the way you say that. I actually never thought of it that way, but it's so true that people are afraid, but yet even religious people are afraid, but yet they're reading stuff that's talking about Bibles. I mean, I'm sorry, that's talking about angels and archangels and saints, and that's pretty much the divinity that we're tapping into.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So yeah, it always blows my mind.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
So how can you define the difference, or what is your definition between a psychic and a medium? What is the difference and how are they the same?
So they are quite different. Mediumship is all about speaking with the dead, with the other side. It's always the other side. Psychic abilities is really getting in tune to the person that you're with and to the other human beings. Like if I'm doing a psychic reading, I do both. So they come together no matter what. I cannot do a mediumship reading without a little bit of psychic stuff coming in.
Mhm.
And, for example, doing a reading yesterday, I said, "Oh, spirit wants to talk about," and this is how I always say it because it makes more sense to people. They want me to talk about your daughter and the fact that she has a learning disability. And she says, "Oh, she does. I didn't know that she had a daughter. And I didn't know she had learning disabilities." But the
Yeah.
other side was showing it to me because psychically, I think they wanted me to connect with her to give her some help with what
Mhm.
was going on. And so that's kind of the difference. It's like that. Uh, it's immediately to the person that you're sitting in front of, and I feel like I'm being guided from spirit when I'm doing that. Some people don't feel that, but you know what? I'm just figuring it out as I go. Everybody has their own perspective. I'm not wrong, and neither are they. That's how
That's
I
so
always
true. That's actually really true.
when I see some videos, sometimes some TikTok videos or some this, that, and the other of psychic mediums or mediums, they want to say that if someone says this, they're wrong. If someone says this, they're wrong. And I'm like, or it's from your own perspective. I could be wrong about it, but you could too. We both could be right. We don't have to, it's not a contest. We are really just seeing this from our own perspective. So I don't ever go around saying, "Oh, that medium's wrong," or "She doesn't know what she's talking about." That's not the way I feel it. Everybody just sees it differently,
And interprets it differently.
interprets it differently. We're not on a telephone call with spirit when I'm doing a reading. I'm getting pictures in my head and I'm interpreting the pictures of what they're showing me. I have to have a frame of reference to understand what that picture is. And if another person is seeing it in their way, it's going to be two different things. Hopefully, you get to the
So
same
true.
conclusion, but we all do it in our own way. So, yeah, psychic and mediums, they always say um, mediums are always psychic, but psychics are not always mediums because psychic can stay in its own little thing, its own little entity. But, who's to say that's right?
Exactly. Yeah, especially if it's all based on intuition, really.
Yeah, it really is just all intuition, and we're just understanding in a different way.
When you say the word spirit, who is spirit?
I feel spirit to me is the spirits on the other side. When I say spirit, like spirits communicating
So it
with
could be
me,
plural, like spirits, not just
absolutely.
necessarily spirit.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm doing things. Sometimes I'm getting tons and tons of different energies coming through, and I have to differentiate. I usually my paper that I write on my is scribbly, 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 and I'm writing because I'm writing all that. Usually they show me in letters. Every now and then I'll get a name. I don't really ask for the names. It takes a little bit more time, so I ask for initials, and I do quite a few initials on a page, an M and an F and a P at the end of the. It's like, oh, that's such and such, such 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 and such, and that's the letters that they were hoping to look for. Much easier for communication purposes to just do letters, and so I just get bombarded by all this different energy, and so, and then I got to
Yeah.
kind of differentiate who's who, and and then they have to tell me if that's right or not.
Right now, when you were talking about the letters and stuff, it kind of reminded me of my teenage years when I used to play the Ouija board. What are your thoughts about like the Ouija board and stuff like that?
Personally, I just think it can invite the darker energy, and so I stay away from that. I have worked with one blessed board one time. A friend of mine had one made, and it was done in a
Wow.
blessed, and it was kind of cool. It was my only and first and only experience with it. I've never used a Ouija board. I've always, even as a kid, felt something bad about it. It made my stomach ache. And so I just like I can look at one and actually get nervous in my stomach.
Yeah.
It's so strange. So what I think it is, it's just the intention. When I do a reading, somebody is calling me. They left a message to get a reading. They booked online. They paid online. It's an intention. When I
Yeah.
talk to the person, I'm intentionally reading the people that they want from the other side, the persons who are now souls to come through. When I open a Ouija board up, anybody and everybody can come through. And I'm sorry to say, there are dark energies out there, whether people want to believe that or not. I have seen them and I have felt them.
Yeah.
And I stay away from anything dark. My readings, when I started reading, I always do a little prayer, and I
Yeah.
sent that to you before. I always ask for the white light.
I love that. Yeah, that was actually my next question. Like, how do you know who you're inviting or who's coming in? Like, how do you prepare for that?
It's I speak out to the universe. I ground myself. I ask for spirits of the white light to engage with me. Um, I ask for confidence. I ask for the highest and best good of the sitter. Um, I ask to give me confidence and that kind of stuff, and just help me to be a clear conduit. So I'm very intentional. And the most important part to me, and I speak it very loudly, is only spirits of the white light are allowed to communicate with me. And I have never in the 9 years ever had a dark energy ever come in a reading.
I was just gonna ask you that if
Mhm.
you've ever had the experience of any type of negative dark energy come through.
No, what I call sometimes is a peekaboo spirit, and people crack up at that, but that's how I see them. They're a little further kind of behind me and not my sitter, which I always know is a sign for, okay, they're not where they're supposed to be, kind of thing. I still feel them on the other side in a realm, but they're people that energies now who are a little on the darker side, maybe did something that they're very ashamed of. When I say ashamed, they usually did. Um, they usually committed some kind of not incest, but molestation. They were child abuse. They abused these people in a way, in some way. And
Okay.
I used to feel that energy behind me with suicide, and I'm not feeling that anymore. Suicide's more in front now, and more. It's just the different way that they're showing me now, and I have to ask the sitter, do you mind if this energy comes through? They have to say, I don't mind, or no, thank you. They have that choice, because that peekaboo spirit, so to speak, knows that they need permission because they've done something to this person, and they're still working through it. And 9 out of 10 times they say, I'll allow it. And immediately this surge of, I am so sorry what I did to you. Did not deserve this. And these people actually get an apology. That one woman told me, I thought I was on the I thought I was healed. I thought I was doing good. I thought my life was like, wow. And I did all this work. And then to have her father come through and say, I'm sorry for what I did. She was just like, this is the day that I feel I get to start healing.
Oh, that's
That's
beautiful.
that's a beautiful thing. And to be able to be part of that, that's a beautiful thing. And so I always let people know, if you want them to go, this is usually because of a learning lesson for them and healing for you.
So how does that feel for you when you know that you're helping people and you're helping the other side learn their lessons and you're also helping people heal and you're kind of like that conduit, that messenger? Do you also get healing from this? What type of energy do you get from this?
I would say every single time I do a reading, I get some kind of healing from it. To me, it just feels like I just thank the universe for this gift. And I just am so overwhelmed with like joy. It just feels like a piece of my soul is like getting more whole, so to speak. Like I'm finding little pieces of my soul that were like scattered out in the universe, and they're being put back in me. And it's just like every single time. And I've done, probably 1,000 readings.
Wow, Teresa, that's beautiful.
There's nothing like it. And I always tell my husband now, I'm like, there's nothing like the work I do. I cannot find it on earth anywhere else because I've searched. And I said, this is what heals me. This is what fills my soul with joy. And I think people can tell when I'm doing a reading that that's true.
Do you ever feel like your energy's been sucked out of you because of so many readings? Do you ever get that feeling?
No, because it's really not my energy. I'm asking the universe for spirits of the white light to come through. I'm just a conduit. So if you think of yourself as just kind of energy moving through you instead of you using your energy, it's
Oh,
a
I
way.
love that.
If I am grounded and I am true to myself, when I ground myself, I picture my feet going into the ground, my tailbone going into the ground with like white light and being pulled down and being kind of locked in place with the earth. If I'm grounded and I truly start with a good grounding, my
Yeah.
energy is not being used. They're just coming right through and I'm speaking out of my mouth. So as much energy as it takes right now to talk to you is as much energy as I have to give.
That's really clear. That's very well put. I can actually picture that, and it totally makes sense. It's energy flowing through you. It's not even
Right.
using your energy.
That's why we're called a conduit, the medium.
Wow, this is amazing.
Yeah. I learned that. It was just like, oh.
So, out of the thousands of readings have you done, have there ever been times where something just isn't clear and things aren't coming through, or you're not getting messages?
Absolutely. There's been some, especially, way back when I was first starting, and I used to get so frustrated. So what I do now, before when right when a reading is starting, I let my sitter, as I call them, I say, "Hey, so I'm going to start this reading, and I've already got a couple things written down from, meditating prior. If it doesn't fit with you in the first 5 to 10 minutes, even 15 minutes, we will pause, we will stop the reading, we will reschedule, or I'll just refund you your money. 100% money back guarantee." And I always let them know it's not you and it's not spirit. It is definitely me. I'm the conduit. I'm the one that's not getting it. And I've actually, maybe 2 to 3 times in the last couple of years, did the rescheduling, and a week later, boom. So it was just something that was going on with my life. I've had, a lot of my own personal stuff going on the last few years.
Hmm.
If I'm a human being, and so I lost my granddaughter. You know, I've been through a divorce. You name it. I've been through life, and
Right.
so I of course I'm going to have those times when I just feel like I'm not good today, and I usually know ahead of the time. But
Yeah.
every now and then I get this little sharp reminder that it's just like, oh no, not today. And people are so understanding and so sweet. And, I'm human and they know it. And I'm just doing my best.
Hmm. So, if ever there's a time where you don't feel like your best and that there might be some blockages and or messages don't come through and you refund person, are they able to come back for a second chance?
Absolutely. Anytime. Mhm.
Mhm. And has that happened before?
Oh, it has. Yeah, it has. It's just like, oh, why don't we wait a couple months? I'm like, whenever you're ready or wherever you feel, and we'll try it. And then I haven't had any problems after that. And I'll even warn people that like the morning of, I'll say, I woke up with a little headache this morning. Don't know how it's going to
Yeah.
progress.
Right.
I get headaches from allergies. I get headaches from stress, and I'm a normal human being. And so headaches to me are probably the most debilitating. I don't really
Yeah.
use my mind, but my head needs to feel clear when I'm doing a
Oh,
reading.
for sure.
So if it's not at its best, I usually warn people, and they're like, you know what? Let's go ahead and let's just reschedule now. And it makes me feel a little sad to do that, but at the same time, it's what's necessary. We got to take care of ourselves first because we are the conduit. We've got to be at our top.
Definitely. So, what do you use oracle cards or tarot cards?
I don't use them during a reading, but I play with oracle cards on my Facebook page, on my Healing Hearts Medium page. And every weekend, I never like to say I'm going to do it this day because then something
Yeah.
will come feel terrible. I'm one of those people like if I commit to you, I really commit.
Yeah.
Um, but I love pulling cards for people, and I tell you what, I get the most amazing um, uh, messages back from people saying, "You just do not know how much I needed to hear this today." It was like that I asked the universe for a message today, and boy, it really spoke. And they're really something. What I do is I lay 3 cards face down. and I take a picture and I ask my folks on Facebook, what are you drawn to? I let them use their energy.
Oh, I love that.
And they're not looking at the cards, they are face down. And I ask them, what are you drawn to? Later on that day, I turn the cards over, I snap a picture, and I give the message from the book. And that's when people are like, dang. And I said, well, you chose there. I'm like, you chose it. And they're just like, wow. And it gives them that boost of confidence. Like, I did choose that. That is
Right.
something that my soul was resonating to. I always use that word. What card resonates with you?
Mhm.
Because I think if we stop long enough and we really listened to our soul and really listened to our intuition, so
Right.
many things would make sense to us and be more clear.
What about pendulums?
I never really got into it. I did learn about them when I was in my mediumship development course.
Hmm.
And to me, my hand moves too much. I kind of have that shaky hand. So
Yeah.
I really trust it. I would
Uh-huh.
rather trust my instincts and my intuition than my hand, moving.
And isn't that the best thing to do anyway, to kind of just develop your own strong intuition so that you don't have to resort to cards and pendulums and stuff like that?
Absolutely. I tell people all the time, I would rather not use the physical stuff. I would rather just use the intuitive part.
When did you actually start fully trusting your intuition? And I'm asking you this because I haven't been in mediumship for even a year yet. But the thing that I love about mediumship is that I feel that it's developing my intuitive skills. And especially when I'm on point, I get this rush of energy knowing, okay, for sure I can trust the messages that I receive. For sure I can trust my gut. I feel that it's making my intuition stronger. And sometimes I wonder, when am I going to be 100% sure that I'm trusting my intuition? Are you there yet? And what did it take?
Nope. I don't think
Okay.
I really don't. There's a lot of times, I'm like,
Is anybody ever fully
you
there?
know, I think they'd be lying if they said yes,
Mhm.
because I think the human part gets in. But I would say for the most part, when I'm doing a reading, I just trust completely what spirit's showing me, and I do my best. That part I do know. But as far as like, oh, that feeling, of being like 100%, I just don't think we ever really get there. I hear of like even people like Tyler Henry who are on TV and Theresa Caputo,
Yeah.
they still get very nervous. I
Yeah.
get before every reading, up to even every time I do a reading, I still get like this little number. I actually do a 5-minute meditation to release my anxiety right before every reading.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if we ever truly trust it, because I think our humanness comes in.
That makes sense. That totally makes sense. And that's
Mhm.
also why we're incarnated into this life anyway, to have this human experience. So there's something we need to embrace in that as well.
Right. And having, building it. Yeah. I think that if I look back on 9 years ago as opposed to now, oh my gosh, I've improved greatly with my intuition and the way that I trust myself 100%. But I had to force myself to do that. I had to stand in front of big groups. I've done groups as big as 60, where 60 sets of eyes are staring at me.
Oh
And
my goodness.
tell you what, about wanting to throw up, and I don't do well
Wait,
in
how
big.
did that happen? How did you get into that?
So with my mediumship development group, our leader, our teacher, she put us in these uncomfortable situations on purpose to kind of help grow us. And then from there, I met a couple mediums that are up in the Portland area, and they asked me to do some shows with them, some groups with them and stuff. So I've had probably 10 group readings that I've done, and some on my own that I've actually friends of friends and they're called, and there'd be 10, 15 women there, or 15 people. And whew, it just, honestly, I really love the one-on-one or the two-on-one the most, because I feel like I'm able to give more of a message. You'll do
Yeah.
the groups and stuff like that, but I don't feel like I get to give the message that I truly want with that one-on-one. I think it's a great way to like have a party and everybody has fun with it, and they hire the medium, and I will go and do some of those. But this is where my heart is,
Mhm.
the one-on-one.
Oh yeah, me too. I love the one-on-one.
I just think you can be so much more clear for that one person, or that couple that comes in, or those two best friends. And it's funny because I'll even know ahead of time. Not always. I'd say 99% of the time, though. I'll go, oh, there's two people coming, and I'll open the door and there's two people there. But told me if they were bringing somebody or not, because it's up
Right.
to two people. people. My 1 hour readings for up to 2 people. And so, so it's so funny. Like my mind is, it's already working. And so I'm always shocked that I'm wrong because I trust it so much now.
Yeah. Teresa, right now when you were talking about like groups of people and stuff, I had this thought, like, what if you're in a group or you're about to read a party and you can sense that there's a lot of people that are skeptic about you? How do you handle that energy? Whether they're like, yeah, whatever, she's a phony,
Oh,
or, how do you handle that?
the funny thing is, those are the ones that usually get read first. Hitting so many times, and you kind of blow them out of the water. One of the things I've said so much since I started doing this is I can care less who believes me if I'm a medium or not. It's really up to them. That's their soul. That's their issues. That's their thoughts. I'm never, ever going to try to change somebody into something that they don't believe. I say that's not my job. And so what I can do, I can give an example. I had a gal, I was at my old house then. I had a gal bring her friend for support. It was a guy friend. And this guy was so big, he kind of was overwhelmingly tall. And I'm 5'2", and just this little tiny woman. And he walked in, my head has to go up to this like 6'7" probably. My head looking, and he's just as wide as he was tall, just a big guy. And he walks to the door, and him and his the friend that brought him sits down, and he takes literally the whole seat. She barely has any room. He's so big, and
Yeah.
just like, and I'm across the room, and we're talking, and he said, I'm just here for support for her. And I said, that's really sweet. What a kind thing to do for your friend. And he goes, well, she really needs a reading. And I gave her a reading, and we started to talk and everything. And I said, I looked at him and I'm like, would you mind if somebody came through? And his eyes were like, oh crap. But the fact he had already heard her getting a message, and that I tuned to her friend was actually murdered. And I saw a train track and a gunshot. And
Wow.
that was the last thing that her friend saw, was the train tracks. And so he already was like, oh shit, it was really, so his facial expressions were already like surprised. And then I switched over to him and I said, your mom and dad are just dying to come through. And I said, and I gave messages very specific about his dad with diabetes, and his mom that was really little. His mom was like my height, and she kept on coming through. And so he was just like, wow. He goes, I really didn't expect that today. But he goes, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
And he knows I wasn't trying to not, to make him a believer all of a sudden, because he was a non-believer, so to speak. But that's all I needed to do. And I left it at that. I didn't say, I told you so. I just didn't, because that's not what he needed. And that's not who I am. It's, you just let spirit do the work, and they'll do what's supposed to be.
So a lot of it is trusting as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, I didn't have to give him a reading that day, but I felt so compelled. His family was crying out for this man to have this healing. It was for him. It wasn't for my benefit. It wasn't to have me prove anything to him. He needed these words, and he left there tearing.
Oh, that's beautiful.
He knew that his family needed to talk to him, and it's just a blessing, to give somebody like that. So yeah, I try not to ever make my fears about somebody not trusting that there's spirit, mess me up. I just let spirit do the work.
Wow, that's beautiful. Right now, when you said something, you said that he left crying. It kind of brought me back to the circle that I'm in. And sometimes when I'm doing a reading, I cry too, but I feel their tears,
Yes.
meaning the energy on the other side, but it's not sad tears. Usually it's tears of happiness. Do you understand this?
You're an empath, and so you're actually feeling their energy. So you're pulling this energy in. So that to me, that's your empathic side, pulling that energy in.
I see.
I will definitely cry too. I can't tell you how many babies I've read, with my daughter losing her child at 7 months along, being pregnant. I know from experience, from seeing her, what she feels like, and so when women or men call me that they lost a baby, I feel this surge, because I have a familiarity for it. It's very familiar, and it hurts like hell. And so I can immediately sense, it's like, oh, you lost a child. And they're like, oh, dang, wow, I wasn't expecting a baby to come through. Well, babies come through because they're a soul. you know?
Right.
And so of course they come through. So it's a beautiful thing, to feel. So I'm feeling their as an empath, I'm feeling their pain.
I see.
And so yeah.
That makes sense.
Mhm.
And so when you get like a baby come through, I mean, are they like, crawling in, or do they come in as a like an older baby, like a toddler or something, like 3 or
All
4 years old?
different ways, honestly. Great question. All different ways. Mostly what I see them as a pink or a blue blanket. The pink being a girl, the blue being a boy. And I feel a feeling like how far along they were. Like it's almost like they give me a timeline and I have a frame of reference for my daughter at 28 weeks. And I'll go, ooh, it was right around that time. And it's usually 25, 27. I'm usually pretty right on. Other times it kind of throws me off and I don't care. I don't care about that if I get that right. And so I don't try to put too much time on to it. But they'll give me the feelings of that they were really close to the end of their pregnancy. It's just so much more traumatic on a mom when she loses a baby that's could have lived outside the womb very easily in a NICU. And so I get that sense, and I get feelings of there's another baby coming.
Wow,
I'll
that's
say, oh,
beautiful.
they're expecting another child in the womb. Are you with child? And it's just like, whoa. Just that happened the other day on Saturday. I was doing a reading, and she had lost. I had already read for her maybe a year and a half ago, and she had lost a boy, and at 25 weeks along. And I said, well, I'm feeling another one. I go, oh, you're pregnant. And she goes, I am. And I said, she goes, you told me on the last pregnancy something on the last reading. And I was like, I can't remember a year and a half ago what I said because I
Yeah.
don't read readings very well. And she said, you told me I was going to get pregnant. She said, you kept on saying March felt really good for getting pregnant. March, March, March. And I kept feeling a girl. This is what she was telling me back. And she goes, I got pregnant in March and we keep feeling a girl energy around us. And so
Oh, wow, that's beautiful.
I don't know. I just say what I feel. So this is how babies' messages come through. They're usually talking about another baby. They're usually showing that, pink and blue blanket. I do get names sometimes. I've gotten a couple names. And it just gives that feeling to that parent of like, oh my God, they were here and they made a difference there and they're around me still.
Mhm.
And that's one of the most important messages you can give a parent who lost a child is that they're still with them.
Oh, yes, I can
What
only imagine.
what my grandma always said was, they're still with us just in a different way. And that's what we need to look for is they're in a different way with our family. It's subtle. You can feel their energy while you're at the table. You can feel their energy while you're walking in a park. You can still feel their energy. And that's what we need to remember. They're always with us.
Teresa, I understand that you are a grandmother of a baby girl that's in spirit as well, correct?
Hmm. I am.
Does she ever come through to you?
She does. She came through to me before my daughter knew she was pregnant.
And how does she come through to you? How do you
She
see her? How do you feel her?
I feel her just at twilight time, like right when I'm trying to go to sleep. This is like her favorite time to communicate with me.
Uh-huh.
Um, the first time I felt her, I was meditating and I felt this very energetic little girl energy kind of rolling around me and kind of hopping around, hopping around, hopping around, and really circulating around my heart. And I was just like, oh, somebody's pregnant. I immediately knew that. And that's what she was showing me, like pictures in my head. And I reached out to a couple girlfriends who I knew were trying to get pregnant, and they're like, nope, nope. And little did I know it was my own daughter.
Oh, wow.
Well, she didn't tell me that she was trying to get pregnant, so I didn't put it together. And
Mhm.
I think a lot of times we're not supposed to know these things, about our own families, and so
Right.
things will get kind of blocked, so to speak. But this particular energy, she was just all over the place, and it was very new to me and very like, whoa. And then my daughter found out she was pregnant with a little girl, and I was feeling the girl energy. And the they don't tell us when they're going to be gone, though. I did not get a message from spirit that I would lose my granddaughter. I did have a feeling the week that she died, my daughter had already said that there's something going on and she was really scared. I got a message from a friend that evening. She didn't know anything that was going on because we didn't share it. And she says, girl, wow, I'm so excited for you. Your life is on fire right now. I just got engaged the week earlier, just had my daughter's baby shower that weekend. And the baby was, coming, and she was just really excited for me. And she said that. When she said it, I got a lump in my throat and I felt very sick to my stomach. So it was
That
like
was your intuition.
that was my intuition, and I didn't listen to it because I didn't want to. I didn't want anything to do with knowing that my granddaughter was going to pass,
Right. Ugh.
going to fight it tooth and nail. So I know that we are protected by our own intuition at times too.
That's true. That makes sense. So then when you did find out that she wasn't going to be in this world physically, how do you experience her now?
So I felt her very strongly at the hospital when my daughter had to deliver her. The next day after we found out she was gone, and felt her very strongly. She was wrapping a blanket around us of warmth and energy in the room. And I know my daughter felt her, but she just couldn't verbalize it. But I could verbalize it. And then felt her again in dreams, little subtle ways. I had to kind of pull myself back a little bit because I was in such trauma and such sadness that it was just almost too heartbreaking to communicate with her.
Yeah.
And then one day last year, about this time last year, she started to kind of come around again more. And I was in a happier place. A year had passed and I was able to start feeling some joy again. And I felt her in the same way that she was. And she came at twilight again, right? When I was trying to go sleep, I call that like my little bewitching hour. And she was giving me messages, and I felt her say, I'm having a brother. I'm having a brother.
Wow.
And my daughter didn't even want to get pregnant back then.
Mm-hmm.
And but I kept on feeling this energy, and then she was talking and like almost giving me like a storylines, and I couldn't understand it. It was driving me nuts, and it would go on for weeks and weeks, and I was writing it all down. And you could look at my text to myself, because I was literally texting it to myself, because it was always weird times of the night and I didn't want to turn on a light and bother my husband. And so you could see the 11:30, 1 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning, and I'm up writing messages from my granddaughter in spirit. And I had put it together in my head that I think she wants me to write a book.
Wow.
And
Okay.
I thought that was a little odd. And then I'd gotten a reading done for myself from somebody who I was studying with, and she did not know me. She did not know anything about my circumstances, nothing. And when I got a reading from her, we all got like 5-minute readings. Mediums like readings too.
Sure. Yeah.
She gave me a reading, and she goes, oh, your granddaughter's in spirit. And I said, she is. And she said, there's a Rose connection. I said, she's Adelie Rose. And she says, she's saying, Grandma, why haven't you written the book yet?
Ooh.
And so I got told by spirit that I'm supposed to be writing this book. So there is a book now. It was almost completed, and it is a book about my granddaughter.
How beautiful is that?
And what she is going to be in our family, how she's still going to be there. And she was correct about the little boy. I have a grandson on the way.
Whoa, congratulations.
And so that this is before my daughter even decided that she was going to have any other children. And the publishing of the book, I decided to be July of this year. My daughter is due in June. And I want a gift. And so the timing was just so amazing from spirit. So everything will be done. And it's a surprise to her. So hopefully she does not hear this podcast.
Yeah.
I'll have to keep it from her.
Yeah, you might have to keep it a secret for a little bit.
Yeah, she's kind of keeping it a secret that she's pregnant too. So from a lot of people, in her mind, she really thought that she disappointed people because her daughter died. Isn't that sad? What the human spirit,
Oh, yeah.
human, our mind does,
Definitely.
And it's not the case. It's just not the case.
Thanks for sharing that beautiful
Yeah.
story. My goodness, it's an amazing story, Theresa.
How amazing they are. We just have to trust them, and we need to trust when they are communicating with us. We just need, and they do.
Teary-eyed here, actually.
Oh,
Beautiful story.
Thank you.
So I have a question about ethics. Like what are the do's and the don'ts on psychic mediumship? What are some things you feel are ethically wrong to share?
To know anything about anybody before I do a reading. I really tell people, please don't tell anything. I don't, want to know anything, because it's just going to skew what how my mind will start taking over, and I don't want that. So
I see.
ethically speaking, we should not know anything about our client before they come in. And it's so funny. Some people think, oh, they probably Google you and this and that. And I'm like, honey, if you have time, if you would think that we have time to Google and
Right.
Facebook stuff,
Right.
have a life and everything else. No. And honestly, what I give is very evidential. It wouldn't be something that you'd find on Facebook or Google. It's more of like evidential to them, like, oh, wow, that I would have never known that, facts that aren't written anywhere.
Right.
Like the couple that I read the other day that, I said, are you, they're showing me that you're pregnant. She says, no, the family hasn't even found out yet. That stuff like that. It's just a knowing. You just trust it. So being evidential is being very ethical.
Mhm. And what about if you can have like a premonition or an intuitive nudge that someone is about to lose someone in the family, or someone is going to be diagnosed with cancer or something terminal? Are you allowed to ethically say this? Do you feel okay telling people this, or are these part of your like boundaries that you put?
That's actually happened a couple times. I was doing a reading, for example, for a gal who came, and it was my first reading with her. And I said, this is how I frame it. The framework has to be there. You have to be very careful what you say. I said, Spirit is showing me that you need to take your mom to the doctor. There's something going on. I'm not quite sure. I don't know what it's all about, but they are showing me like a need to take your mom to the doctor.
Mm.
And so, that particular case, she messaged me a couple days later and said, I got my mom to the doctor. Sadly, she's in stage 4 cancer and she has like a month to live.
Mm.
But if I hadn't given that message, she wouldn't have had that time with her mom, because she didn't know anything was wrong.
Mm.
Her mom went downhill very quickly, but she wasn't having any symptoms of this stage 4 cancer. She was just tired, and nobody had picked up on it. And so she wouldn't have had that last month with her mom had she not got the message. So sometimes it's like, what do I do? What do I do? So I feel compelled to give a reading like that, of like, hey, so this is what I'm feeling. That's not me being unethical. That's just them, kind of like, hey, go take your mom to the doctor, spirit showing it to me. And no one's ever been upset with me about that.
But can you actually see like beyond that, beyond the doctor visit?
I
You
have.
you just kind of know what boundary to put.
Exactly. There is a knowing of distress. There is a knowing of something's really up, but I can't verbalize that.
Sure.
I did a reading one time where I was actually reading for a gal who lost her baby, and her mom was there with her. And I was doing a Zoom, and in the background, her dad walked by, and I didn't know he was even home. I didn't know anything about him or anything. And I just said, "Oh, guys, is that your dad? Is that your husband?" And she says, "Yeah, that's my dad. That's, da 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 da." And she goes, "Yeah, that's my hubby, and he's probably just getting himself a snack." And I felt this overwhelming feeling towards his feet, and to me, that's diabetes. A tingling in the feet. It's a symbol that comes in, and they literally tingle my feet. And I said, "Hey, I don't know any way of saying this other than, will you go have your dad get checked out? I'm getting a symbol for what I feel for diabetes. And that means, he could have something be going on there. Are you guys comfortable with me saying that?" And they're like, "Yeah, absolutely. Heck yeah." And sure enough, he has diabetes, and he didn't know he had it. And they were able to get him on the meds and change his diet and actually help him. So they were tickled that I said that. So it's just me being an intuitive. We can be a medical intuitive. It just pops in. I don't know when it's going to happen though.
As you're saying this, Teresa, I'm also feeling, I mean, that in a lot of ways you're a healer. Do you ever consider yourself as a healer?
I think so, because when we give these messages, we are healing a part of the soul that this person, had.
Right.
Um, I've been very drawn to energy healing. I have taken a couple of the Reiki ones. I haven't gone to my Reiki 2 or Reiki 3, but I keep on getting pushed out of Reiki for some reason. Something else is being drawn in.
Mhm.
And so I don't know where that's going to go, but we have practiced energy healing in my mediumship development class. And when I laid hands on one of my people, she said her shoulder had been bothering her for a while, and she was just like, "Oh, that's weird. It's gone now." And so I believe that that's there. I just haven't utilized it yet all the way yet. Maybe it's just not my path yet.
But I
It
guess
you
what
have.
I'm I guess what I meant to say is when I hear the stories that you're telling and how people you're giving these messages about people going to see the doctor in a way that's also emotionally healing and emotionally guiding people. So that is in turn
Yeah,
it's healing. It's a
yeah.
healer.
And I always tell people, "Hey, I got that from spirit." This is like the ones that were coming in and showing me, they're the ones that were directing me to his feet. That's how I feel it, because that's where I feel like I get all my messages from, is spirit. And so if they want me to say that during a reading, they're showing it to me. I should say it.
Right.
I'm not going to say, "Oh man, I think you're in stage 4 cancer and you're going to die next month." I would never say that. But if
Right,
I
right.
person to get to the doctor, this and that, then spirit is asking for that. I believe I need to listen.
So what about relationships? What if somebody comes up to you and says, "Hey, I want a relationship reading. I think my partner's cheating on me." What are there are there ethics with that? Your boundaries that you have for this?
Oh, yes, absolutely. First thing I say is, that's generally something that I wouldn't get into. I feel like I could ruin a relationship, and I don't want that. That's never an intention. Mine's all about healing. But what I'll say to them is, the person you should be asking this is in the mirror. Go home and really ask yourself, what are you feeling and where did that question come from? Because if that's coming from an intuitive place, you already have the answer. And we shouldn't, as healers, as psychic mediums, anybody, we shouldn't be given that information then when they truly know it themselves.
That's so true, actually. If somebody's really asking that question, it's because they know the answer.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Wow, this has been a beautiful interview, Teresa. So much has been unloaded, and I really appreciate your time, your incredible energy, and all
Thank
of the
you.
information that you've given. How can our viewers or watchers and our listeners find you if they need to get a reading or just know more about you?
Oh, thank you. I really enjoyed our time. I am at healingheartsmedium.com, and that's where you can book a reading. And I'm also on Facebook, Healing Hearts Medium. And yeah, you can reach out anyway. And I love, love, love getting messages and just asking questions and stuff. Sometimes people don't want a reading, they just want to have a little bit more understanding. And I absolutely love guiding people to that, especially anything to do with kids. I really want to help their kids, because growing up with the problems that I had as a kid, and then adding that already, being an empath and being a sensitive child, oh boy. So I really love that. So if anybody has a question or anything like that, they can totally reach out to me and I'll guide them in the direction they need to go.
Theresa Watson, everybody, on A Little Less Fear podcast, evidential psychic medium now. She's a healer wife, mother, and a grandmother. She's got her incredible website at healingheartsmedium.com. You can also find her on Facebook at the Healing Hearts Medium and on Instagram on Healing Hearts Medium. Thanks so much for being on A Little Less Fear podcast. Looking forward to keeping in touch with you. Wishing you and all of your loved ones an incredible, blessed day.
Thank you, Lino. Have a
Thank you so
great
much. Thank you.
bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.